Shalom, this is Avraham Shira at the Dead Sea in Eretz Israel. It's Erev Shabbat, Parshat Korach, the famous machloket, the great controversy between Moses and one of his fellow Levi'im, Korach, who was considered the wealthiest man in his generation, but he wanted more. He wanted to be a prophet and a leader like his cousin Moses. And so Korach was a problem because he had a lot of power. Now the question is, how did people follow him? He had 250 men went after him into the grave because of his claims that Moses had taken the power unfairly and falsely. And so it's understandable why a man will go after power. Rabbi Nachman says that people that have embedded in them the power of Netzach, the power of Malchut, it's in their nature to want to be leaders. But the followers, they give their power to the false leader. Otherwise, the false leader really has no power. So we understand that people are endowed with certain charm, the ability to speak, money, all kinds of things that make them into a potentially powerful figure. Why did all the other people go after the guy? Because, if you see beneath the surface, you see, well, maybe there's not so much there. Okay, so when we look at this situation, there's other questions that are going to be raised, and it's all very, very, very tightly woven into the ideal of the Bible of what's called Avodah Zarah, idol worship. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind, because this idea of the attraction of false powers is not a simple thing, and almost everybody falls for it, if not once or 1,000 times in their life. Okay, so Korach, he attracted a following. The following opposed Moses, and in the end, we know what happened to them. They were all swallowed in the ground. But when we ask the question, why they went after him, well, because I think there's a part of every person that wants to be led. There's a part in us that wants to know there's a higher power. Because I don't feel so powerful. I don't feel powerful at my job, so I look for the guy above me. I don't feel powerful in my neighborhood, so I look to the guy, who has more guns or more money or more limousines. I don't know. It depends on your neighborhood, right? So there's a part of us that doesn't feel powerful, and that creates an imbalance in our soul, in our being, that we're going to start looking for other powers. And of course, the ultimate solution to all of that is look for the most ultimate power, which is the creator of all of this magnificent universe and this problematic, amazing human race. Okay, but before we start looking for God, usually we're looking for in a lot of other places. But they always ask the question, I noticed today online, there are so many articles about rich people. Rich people going up and down the social ladder, rich people going to divorce court, rich people suing each other, rich people having their yachts, confiscated. I mean, it's just amazing. They have power, it's true, because God gave them the power. But why does it captivate the imagination? Why does it take me away from feeling powerful about who I am and what I'm here to do in this world? Now, if I'm not attached to my power, well, of course, the real answer is we've got to find our power within. And ultimately, we're going to find that with things like Shabbat, with things like talking to God, because we create a relationship with the most powerful, then all of a sudden the other powers that are kind of dancing in our mind and dancing on the screen are diminished a little bit. They get balance and proportion. Now, the idea is written in the Mishnah like this. And we're here at the Dead Sea, and this is kind of why I hope you can see it in the background. It's really beautiful, and it reflects the mountains in Jordan, which used to be the ancient tribe of Moab, which we had a lot of dealings with them. And you could see the biblical serenity and power of the mountains here. It's really amazing. But the Mishnah tells us that when people decided they didn't want to follow the false powers anymore, what they called idols then. And there are many, and I'm not going to go over through all their names, and they represented different forces in the body and in the human life cycle, whether it's nature or in their own bodily processes. They served a lot of different powers back in the day. And when they decided they wanted to stop doing it, they were instructed by the rabbis to come to the Dead Sea and throw them in the salty lake out here. It's a big lake, but it's not an ocean, right? Throw it all in the ocean. And the salt level of the Dead Sea is about 4 times of the regular ocean. And of course, anything's going to be destroyed. Now, if a person worships money, what do? Throw all your money in the Dead Sea? Right. I'm sure everybody's ready for that. Especially if you have billions, that's a lot to carry. And back in the day, of course, it was a little more subtle, because they would take a coin, whether brass or copper or silver or gold, and they would engrave the image of their king, the Caesar, on the coin, and then it becomes a sin that's from the Torah itself that tells us not to worship or not to have graven images. Now, graven images means something that's carved. Now, today, if you paint, you're not really engraving, so it's not quite the same thing. But the idea is the power of the image. So you see, the power of an image has over our mind is that it enters our imagination. Now you see a little coin with a picture of a man on it. You say, oh, that's Caesar. That's Caesar, and he represents power, the power of Rome. And this coin is supposed to be more valuable than other coins when I go to the marketplace in Damascus or in Rome. And so the money has power according to who's behind it. Now, the coin itself is supposed to have intrinsic value because it's made of a particular metal. But the rabbis, the sages, tell you if you worship that thing, you got to throw it in the Dead Sea, because the Dead Sea consumes everything. The corrosion level is so fast that there's nothing going to be left. But what it's really teaching us, why do they want us to get rid of our money? Can't I just say, okay, I'm not going to worship money anymore? Can't I just say that? Oh God, please help me not worship money. Forgive me for worshiping money, for giving all my attention span to the rich people online. Can I just say I'm sorry for that? Well, hopefully we do. That's a good level, of course. However, back in the day, 2,000 years ago, they were commanded to throw it in the Dead Sea because the rabbis know that even though you throw away your statue, your idol, the thing you worship, whatever it is, it still has an impression in the brain, in our memory, in our experience. I remember as a kid seeing, pro baseball players, up live at a game, and it was like, wow, these guys are bigger than life when you're a kid. Now you see them as adults, and you're like, well, they're just kind of like talented people. They're not gods. So there's a change in our perception as we get older, and that perception is happening in the mind. And in the mind, you see, the camera is a flexible camera. And the bigness of the image depends on the innocence of the photographer, our minds. So we have to erase the connection to the power itself, and we have to take the power that we put in the false idol and put it back to where it belongs, which of course is the creator of everything. And the people like, oh yeah, the Jews, they're just trying to get you to get rid of your idols. But the priests, they knew this power. And so what idol worship really represents is they mystify the powers of higher knowledge. Back in the day, people didn't understand meteorology, and they didn't understand why rain wasn't coming. And anybody that had any scientific knowledge understood that there's a time of year of rain and there's a time of year where there's no rain. And so they would extort people for their money. Give to my idol. I'm in charge here at the temple of the idol of rain, or the idol of the grain, which is produced by the rain. And so if you give your proper offering, then I'm going to make sure you get your rain for your crop this year. So that was what the ancient priests would do, and they extorted everybody for everything. And if you wanted a child and you couldn't have a child, then there would be a priest for that, and a priest for the river, and a priest for the fish, and a priest for every single thing. A priest for health, bodily health. And so they would extort money from the people. Does it sound familiar? Does it sound interesting? Sound like it could be happening today in certain industries? I don't want to point the finger too hard here because, usually when we point the finger too hard, it points back at us. We don't want to do that. But we understand how the system works. So what the system works is you take a higher form of knowledge and you mystify it. And the Bible, which is a very mystical thing, comes and wants to demystify it. Wants to take it out of that ultimate place in your mind and bring it down to reality. No, it's not about the God of rain. I'm the God of rain. I'm the God of fire. I'm the God of the ocean and the river, everything. And all you have to do is pray to me and I'll send rain. And so the priests don't like that, right? That's bad for business. And so this demystification process has to happen in our imagination. We have to take back the power. And the power of Shabbat, well, what are we doing when we believe in Shabbat? What are we doing? We're believing in an idea. And what's the idea? That one day a week I don't have to go to work. That I can stay home and enjoy my effort that I put into this week. And one day a week I can sit down with my family without running out the door with a piece of bread in my mouth. One day a week I can get up when I want and take a nap when I want. And the Talmud says that at one day a week on Shabbat, every Jew is a little king because he's in charge of his little kingdom. And there's something very good for the human self-esteem to have that feeling. Okay? So when we keep Shabbat, we're actually taking away the power from the false God. And we're saying, no. We know there's a real God. We know there's a God that's designed creation that one day in 7 we need not to work. And the same is true when we talk about other forms of idols and other forms of power. Because, if you rent your house, then you're going to worry about your landlord raising the rent that year. And if the bank is raising the interest rate on you have a flexible rate mortgage, my mortgage is going up. And if there's illness in the family, then I'm really dependent on those doctors to get me the right medicines. And I'm not saying all these people, there aren't people with integrity in every industry there are. But there are many industries that seem to promote a challenge to our integrity. Now, I saw, it was interesting today, I saw a bottle of medicine, but they advertised it as magical. Now, what's magic? Magic is another type of higher power that's above nature. And so that's mystical. But when you understand how magic works, it's actually not it's not higher than the one who creates all the power. It's usually a form of deception. Now, there are mystical types of magic, and we know that there's the cult practices. There are idols that actually are served by not by giving them money or grain, but there are actually, people that, well, you can ask in Haiti. I met people in Miami that moved from Haiti, and they told me about what they were doing with goats in the basement, and how they would sacrifice and use voodoo and sacrifice as a way to curse people. I've had clients that have claimed they've been cursed by an African tribe because they still practice some of these occult practices. But the occult is not the type of magic that they're advertising in Hollywood, and not the type of magic they're advertising in Big Pharma. Okay, but it's still the same concept. We're giving away our power to something else. Now, it looks higher than us until we really find that power inside us. And that the highest power in the universe is inside us. And that's the Creator. And He wants to be revealed through us. He could reveal Himself instantly out here at the mountains on the Dead Sea. I mean, it wasn't far away. Mount Sinai is not that far away. Right? He revealed Himself one time to 3 million people. And everybody else is supposed to, take notes and believe in your grandfather. But the point, of course, is that if we didn't have the experience, how would we have the affirmation of the idea? See, we need the affirmation of the idea that God is inside us, that every single person has a spark of that power. And if I worship anything else, I'm diminishing His power. And I'm diminishing His place in my heart. And that is not why we were created. Okay, so to demystify the mystical, that's what the Torah is here to do. And to cleanse our mind of these false powers is simply by keeping the mitzvot that He commands, because then I'm attached to His will. And by keeping Shabbat, I'm automatically saying, no, there is another boss, right? That I take off one day a week no matter what. And that's not easy. For some people, it's easy because they work 4 days a week. They're happy to take off for Shabbat, you know. But for the people that are used to working, grinding it out 5 and 6 days a week, it's a little different. Now, another way that we take back our power, of course, is by prayer. Because you're literally taking the power of your body, your mind, your heart, your attention span, your focus, your desire. And you're saying, I'm taking it away from all the other places I invest my desire, and I'm putting it in the King of Kings. I'm putting it in the Master who gives us the power. Now that seems pretty fair, right? He gives us power, you give it back. It makes sense, the system. But until you try it, and I'll tell you, 32 years ago, when I was a secular person and I was exposed to religious Judaism, I said, look, God, I don't know if you're real or not. I don't know if your Torah is real or not. I don't know if Moses is the real deal or not. But I'm willing to test and to see. Give me a sign. Show me that you want me to be a religious Jew. I'm not ready to take this on. And I went that way, mitzvah by mitzvah, every single mitzvah in the beginning, getting tzitzit, right? Keeping Shabbat, eating kosher. I had to find out the hard way by eating a bad meal at Taco Tico, you know. But you know, you learn one way or the other. The point is, I threw down with God, in other words. Simplest language I can find. I said, God, if you're true, show me. If you're the real deal, show me. And I encourage all of you to do the same thing. Because we need to empower ourselves with faith. And then we'll give him the power instead of all these other fallen powers. And then we don't have to throw our money in the Dead Sea, or our idols, or our rock stars, or anybody else, right? Because we understand there's a balance. There's talented people in the world. Very talented people. But it doesn't mean they're gods, right? God forbid. And then when we see that there really is this living being inside you, you're never alone and you're never without power. And you turn it into faith, and you turn it into prayer, and you turn it into mitzvot. And then life takes on another whole dimension. Because you're not alone and you're with every expanse. Because when you talk to God, you're talking to the whole universe as one infinite being. And that's kind of a big idea to get your head around. And we don't need to, because he's already inside us. God bless you all. It's about 95 in the shade over here, and I think I'm going to have to go take my third shower of the day, but it's worth it to be here with you on Facebook, and please think about what we talked about. Listen to this again, and we'll see you on all the other platforms this week, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Patreon, on Web Yeshiva, Insight Timer, and you know, we'll continue taking back our power, because society doesn't want to give it up so easy. We got to do the work. God bless you all. Shabbat Shalom.